We are talking about herbal medicine making like a pro. Hi, I'm Laura. Laura's Botanicals. It's a Richmond, Virginia based company. I'm a clinical herbalist and holistic lifestyle coach. And for the last 10 years, I have supported clients directly with holistic health solutions at home. Hi, everybody. So this is a session today is about herbal medicine making, and I'll quickly talk about the different ways that people find and use herbal medicine, so herbal products, where you might find these herbal products at, the pros and cons of each. And yeah, maybe from there, I'll go into a couple other things about how to really make sure that your herbal medicine making that you do at home is effective, or that the products that you get are effectively made.
Holy,
Oh,
that's okay.
oh,
As soon as I
little traffic behind me. It's like a little party today. Excuse me. So we have the first step is to tell you like a little bit about the herbal medicine that people generally take. So um, generally, when people are taking herbal medicine, they're looking for teas or tinctures, capsules, syrups, electuaries. There's also like herbal compounds, salves for topical uses, liniments for topical uses, and also balms for topical uses. So those are kind of like the main like names, categories of herbs. There's some that are like a little bit more outdated, pastilles, electuaries, cordials. Um, and tinctures are a giant category because they can be made with different substances. So you can make ethanol or alcohol-based tinctures or extracts. You can make vinegar-based tinctures or extracts. You can also make glycerites with glycerin. And then, of course, there's food as medicine. So a lot of herbal usage can be just directly in the foods that people actually eat. And that's actually a great way to start and to nourish the body, because think of it like you have the grocery store and there's a few things, right? And you see the same things over and over again. But an herb, herbs, your whole like diversity, your whole palette is just expanded like a huge amount because you now have awareness and hopefully eventually working knowledge with even more plants. And plants have a lot of different nutritive properties and can support the body with the nutrition. So, for example, there's spinach and there's wild greens potentially in your grocery store, like dandelion greens now, or chicory or radicchio. But like if you started to use greens like stinging nettle, right? You'd even get more of the same nutrients that are in those other nutrient dense greens, and probably triple fold, right? Because spinach has a lot of nutrition, but stinging nettle, which is like a wild version of that or has been cultivated, is quite the packer with lots of nutrition. So a lot of minerals, very mineral dense green. So that's just like one example. Another example about diversity here, just to kind of open up this conversation about herbal medicine making, because I think it gets complicated when you think about parts of plants and using parts of plants. Um, to become a pro at herbal medicine is to understand the specificity of each of the herbs you're using, right? So, for example, you go in the grocery store and you get raspberries. You find the little fruits that you can put on your fingers, and they're delicious. And I'm sorry, I had a couple flies. They flew in. So if you see something flying around me, I'm sorry. My house is in the southeast, and we're struggling this year. Around our garden bed's right outside my window. Um, and so the raspberries are wonderful, nutritive, delicious fruits, and they have their season. Generally in the early to midsummer, right? Even though we can get them all year round now because we're getting them from different growing climates and bringing them into our grocery stores. But you can use raspberry leaves. Raspberry leaves are incredibly beneficial. They have wonderful minerals, and the minerals are significant in the raspberry leaf. And so when you're growing your own plants or foraging your own plants or connecting to local growers, you can build relationships differently than you can with a grocery store, and you get these different parts of the plants that you can utilize for herbal medicine making and explore parts of plants differently. Dandelion greens, I brought up dandelion greens, delicious and very important for our diet. Our microbiome loves it, which, by the way, our gut loves diversity. Like, that's one of the keys to a healthy gut is diversity of plants, um, and food choices. So when you see that your like menu's a little bit limited, expand it, right? Add in some more anti-inflammatory choices, some more herbs, some more plants, some more diversity, spices. Those things keep your gut very happy. in your microbiome. And dandelion is a wonderful plant, and you can only buy the leaves in the grocery store. Now, some specialty grocers might offer the root as well now, because I've seen burdock root in grocers here locally, which is delicious. I love burdock root. But besides growing it yourself or foraging it, you wouldn't be able to find dandelion roots unless, of course, that specialty grocer or an herbalist would have some in their herb pharmacy or in their apothecary to sell to you. But it's usually dried. So the fresh root is such a wonderful vegetable. And you can also eat the flowers and the buds of the dandelion. So it's like kind of interesting that we have created these like parts of plants that have become totally commerce friendly. But there are other parts of the same plants that are incredibly therapeutic and they just get wasted. So that's one of the advantages of expanding that diversity through an herbalism lens for your herbal medicine making. And it makes you a pro because you're using different parts of the same plants, very resourceful, and you're becoming more specific about each of the plants and what each part of the plant can possess biochemically to support your body and to support your health goals. Cool. So those are the basics. Food with your herbs, great way to start. There's so many recipes you can do with herbs, not beyond your pestos. You can do popsicles. You can do herbal infused salts, which adds even another layer of minerals to your diet. Herbal infused marinades or vinegars, which have a lot of nutrition because vinegar is an excellent solvent for minerals. So meaning vinegar can break down and extract the minerals from herbs and from plants even better so than water or alcohol, which is not a great solvent for minerals. And if you were to go that route, there's a lot to do with foods and herbs to start as a basis to build more of a nourishing foundation using herbs in your diet and your daily goals. Most people, when they explore herbal medicine for the first time, they don't even call it herbal medicine, right? They're going to a tea shop or they're going to a grocery store and looking for boxes of tea. Because fundamentally, I think we've all kind of accepted socially that tea is a therapeutic activity. It makes you feel good when you don't feel good. And it's something we can all kind of have a moment to relate to about someone making us our tea when we're feeling ill or feeling poorly. And tea is universally acceptable and one of the most widely available herbal preparations out there because water is universal. Most of us can get access to clean water and can use that to make teas. So it's a very old way of preparing herbs for the body. In fact, ancient, right? So herbal medicine is ancient. It roots back to, to Indian medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, depending on where you're talking about. There's roots and written records of herbal medicines being used and compounded back thousands of years. And teas were definitely part of that picture. Teas, because of its universal nature, are readily accessible. People can gather the water, prepare the water, get the herbs they need. There's nothing more humbling than watching a video of someone in India making like a curry, right? With things. It's incredible. They can literally walk around their yard, go and pick things from the trees and from the bushes while cooking and adding. And then it's like cyclical. It's because they go from one layer to another in their cooking, right? So it's like one thing after another. It's a very detail oriented process. And it's very humbling to see that type of informed nature. They understand the herbs. They've grown up with them. It's part of their culture. And so the bioregion really impacts the flavor and the use of what herbs will be used. It's just such an interesting story. So that's kind of like ethnobotanical. Ethnobotany is like the study of how people and plants have kind of grown up together and how the plants and peoples grow together and the particular regions of plants and medicines coming together story. Um, so, again, teas, accessible, universal. Sometimes the pros of teas are anybody can get water and herbs and make a tea. Kind of the cons of it maybe is that the water isn't a very good extractor of certain parts of the plants, which we were talking about that specificity. Water is excellent at extracting mucilages and polysaccharides. It's excellent at supporting the body just with that overall basis of kind of most of the constituents of the plants. It's really great for the mucilages and the polysaccharides, though. So we're talking about those like beautiful gooey substances in plants or inulins in plants that will produce um, a supportive therapeutic to like the mucosal membranes. And as you drink it, it's touching the inner tissues, the terrain of our body, producing and supporting the health and terrain of those cells and of those tissues. So think herbs like marshmallow root or even okra, hibiscus. They have a wonderful emollient on the skin topically and a demulcent action internally. So waters are and teas are great to get that. Your polysaccharides are your really complex carbohydrates that are inside of mushrooms, which we consider herbs too. And herb is just any kind of plant or mushroom that we're taking intentionally therapeutically. That's how I define herb. Mushrooms fit under there. Not all mushrooms, but some mushrooms. And not all plants are considered herbs, but some are. So we get to know that again through that specificity, understanding the plant on an individual level, which I teach in depth in my everyday herbalism fast track, within my system. I help people learn how to organize, research, and figure out which plants they want to bring into their life effectively. So if you watch my training from last night, I go into exactly how we do that, the routines we do to set that up, and nourish those routines and how to set yourself up for success with that. So go watch that if you haven't already, because this will all make sense how you'll prepare the preparations effectively to put in the spaces we talked about last night. And the first night, Monday nights or Monday afternoon session rather. Sorry, I'm used to doing this at nighttime. It's only 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. um, on Monday we did like a mindset piece, the belief and the goal setting to prepare you for the way to kind of frame your healing moving forward. So those are good trainings to supplement this one. And so the mushrooms are also excellent in a tea because the water is a great extractor of what's inside of mushrooms. So if you get a good herbal mushroom product, I really like Host Defense. They're a great, and I support their research. They've been in the game for a very long time, doing the work, right, to help people understand fungi and how they can work for our bodies to support our hormone systems as well as our immune system. They're also doing a lot of research in the wild areas of the world where most of these mushrooms get originally found to study them and to understand what kinds of potential they have. They've also been very effective politically to get their research in front of the right people. So it's really cool what they've done. And you'll see on their products there are dual extractions, meaning they're both water-based and alcohol. So there's a really cool thing about the beauty of the magic of the mushroom medicine is like you sometimes will do a dual extraction where you extract the mushrooms in a water, in a tea, but then you also do the same mushroom in a tincture. And then you marry the two in a proper blend ratio to not upset the balance. And that's a dual extraction. So it's utilizing both water and alcohol extractions to combine them for the finished result. So water teas. You might not want to drink a tea when you're getting up in the middle of the night. You might need something that's a little more faster absorbing, easier to access. You're not going to get up and make that tea. You also want your teas to not be like just a tea bag because the surface area of the tea has been broken down so much that it's no longer really effective. Plus, there's microplastics now in our tea bags. So it's really hard to control that. So I prefer whole herbs every day, all the time. And the flavor is by far better. And the flavor is going to be a lot better too if you're growing your own plants, foraging them, or providing getting connected with local growers and getting your herbs that way. Now, if you can't, I mean, I recommend Mountain Rose Herbs in Eugene, Oregon. That's good organic quality. And then for Ayurvedic herbs, I use Banyan Botanicals. And there's a couple other resources I would do, but I do prefer a bioregional network somewhere close by because the herbs are better quality, color, potency. And generally you can get a good relationship, you get a good deal and get them dried for you. So there's just a lot of good things to support your local bioregional economy. And the same goes for like other things you're going to put in your herbal products. So the actual oils you use for your topicals, the actual oils you use for your herbal oils for your food, the vinegars, the salts. I like to use a company here, Hatteras Sea Salts, different local, coastal, smaller, bioregional, family-owned companies. Now, it gets a little expensive, of course, but the better the quality of the ingredients, the longer they last, less you need. And so they're more intact. They haven't gone through a lot of processing. So another kind of con to water is that water for your teas rather, that the teas have no shelf life. So once you make a tea, it's about drinking it at that moment or the next day. You can refrigerate it for a couple days, but that's it. Because once it starts getting cloudy or has an off smell, you can't use it anymore. And you would require refrigeration to keep that as fresh as possible. Tea is about the moment. Again, it's about the time that you worked with it directly, and there's a beautiful ceremonial quality to that and meditative quality. There's a lot of research and clinical evidence about how great tea drinking is because of its meditative qualities. And it's, of course, the minerals and nutrients in tea leaf as well as the herbs themselves. A great health promoting activity. But if you're looking for shelf life, teas are not that. Now, the dry teas will last for a while in a dry cupboard, away from light, away from intense heat, in jars or in sealed containers. But the actual making of the tea with the water won't last you. So we'll move on to tinctures because that's the other solution to if you have to get up in the middle of the night to have a quick herbal supplement or herbal preparation to support your health. A tincture could be a really good way to go because it's fast absorbing. They're kept in bottles. They are, shelf wonderful. They can stay on the shelf for a very long time. And so that's a really good quality about them. Alcohol is a great solvent for resins. It's a great solvent for alkaloids. And so those are the parts of the plant, the constituents, the chemistry that comes out of the plant. So if they weren't transferable in water or vinegar, but they are transferable in alcohol, we would make that choice with that specific herb to use alcohol instead of the other solvents, the other preparations. So again, specificity of the plant, knowing the plant on an individual basis will make you a better pro at herbal medicine making. The more in depth and more deep relationship you go with one single plant, the better medicine you'll make. Okay. Um, so for example, dandelion root, has lots of inulin. The inulin will come out in the water and the vinegar, but it won't come out transfer into the alcohol as good. But there are some particular chemicals in the dandelion that will transfer to alcohol pretty well, and you might prefer the leaf and the flower for that purpose. Um, calendula flower. Calendula officinale. It's got wonderful phytochemistry. It's got a lot of nutrition. Beta carotene. It has a lot of pigments that are healthy for the gut, for digestion, and for immune health in water or vinegars, and also raw in salads and foods or cooked. Hey guys. But if you are wanting the non-mineral side, you want the resins from the calendula, which if you ever grown calendula, it's that wonderful stickiness when you pick up the flower heads, and that's a great sign that it has a lot of resins. Those resins are not transferable as well in the water or vinegar, but they do extract really well in a tincture. So if the resins are responsible for its lymphagogue properties, supporting the lymph health, which it does, you would want to make a tincture of the calendula flowers, the flowering heads, because then you're going to get an excellent product for that action, right? Versus if you wanted to support broad spectrum digestion or immune health, you would dry the flower heads and use them in soups and broths, which they used to do. Culpepper, one of our earlier herbals, which by the way, guys, if you want to look into a lot of these older herbals, a lot of them are free online. Henriette's herbals, Maud Greaves herbals, Culpepper his herbals. A lot of these books are free online. So you don't have to just go for modern texts to find some of these amazing recipes. I would prefer you to go back in the past and find some really interesting stuff because sometimes with recipes and things like that, they get shipped away, right? Like, for example, fire cider. We coined that and we give the credence to Rosemary Gladstar, who's still living today, a modern herbalist. But it actually, there's variations of it from the past. And fire cider used bayberry in one of its original recipes, which is really interesting because bayberry, the reason why is because it removes canker. And canker is an old term word for phlegm. So it's interesting because the bayberry did go through kind of a phase. I believe it was the eclectics who brought it back in their movement and their use of the herb. There's different movements and schools of thought, and that's how the herbalism kind of stays consolidated. within these different trajectories. Okay, I know it's a lot of complicated talk I just gave you, but basically there's certain practitioners, certain practices, certain periods of time within herbal medicine in the West, in the States, United States, where certain herbs were featured and became kind of poster childs of that movement. Lobelia for the Thomsonians, echinacea for the eclectics. I think I'm getting a little fuzzy, but I know that bayberry did have its moment. White pine bark for the eclectics. So it's interesting to see how that's kind of come through time, and some plants make it to the modern time, and some don't. Some drop out of the recipes altogether. So a classic fire cider, which is wonderful for fall, winter preparations for its immune supportive properties, and its ability just to increase blood circulation and gut health as well. Um, it always includes horseradish, which it should. Um, and it always includes onions and pungent herbs, but there was some old use with bayberry as well, which I think is just fascinating. So back to tinctures, because I just kind of went off a tangent there about some, I call them classic synergies or classic combinations, which we can only learn from other herbalists. Go through those books, go through those recipes, go through them and see the what's similar to each other. Where do herbalists agree? That's where we can find general recipes for all people. So we talked about waters and teas. You probably know now how to make a basic tea, but there's the decoction, the infusion, and there's the diffusion and decoction method. Again, it's all about specificity, right? It's all about knowing what parts of plants are best for which preparation. So you got to know the plants individually to do that. If I was going to make a tea, an infusion, I'm covering my leaves and flowers and buds, all the nice light aerial parts above the ground with a hot water close to boiling for 20 minutes in a capped vessel. A decoction is the same amount of water to herb on the stove, a slow simmer for 20 to 30 minutes, turning it off. And then the infusion decoction is meeting them in the middle and bringing them together. So starting my decoction and then putting the decoction over my infusion herbs, and there you have it. So that'll be a 40-minute time period. If you want me to break that down for you, I can. I can also just send you my Herbalism 101 sheet, which has it all written down. No problem. Just DM me. I do it all the time. And I also give my beginner book list that I love, my best books that I always read and continue to read forever. Because a good book, it never stops being good. You always want to go back to a good book. So I do have a list of my recommended books. How long have y'all been practicing herbs? How long have you been using herbs? Herbs have really transformed my life. I talk a bit about my personal story on day 1 and day 2, so go back and watch those. Day 1, I heavily talk about it, like why herbs changed my life and why I decided to do it. Yesterday, I did talk about it too. But it really is just a transformative experience. We're thinking, oh my gosh, these plants can be used for inside the body. So we talked about food as medicine, teas, and tinctures. Alcohol is a great solvent for particular things. Vinegar, great for minerals. But some people will take vinegar tinctures because they don't want to have alcohol. So again, specificity, not just in getting to know the plants, but getting to know the person that you're giving the plants to, right? If someone comes to me and says, I have a really low tolerance for alcohol, I can't take alcohol at all, I'm not going to give them an alcohol tincture, right? It's going to be best fit for them. And so you can actually make quite a variety of tinctures or extracts with vinegar. I did a little experiment a few years ago just to see what herbs translated well to vinegar, and there were quite a few. Green's Herbal Medicine Making Guide, James Green. Great section on vinegar extracts. So he gives you a really good chart telling you actually what plants are really do translate well. And the same with oils, right? Well, you're always wondering what herbs can translate or come to oils well. And there's some big hits, right? Calendula and rose petal do really well in your topical herbal oils for skin concerns. But then there's other ones that, are actually really interesting. Elderflower is wonderful in oil. Echinacea flower is really excellent in herbal oil. Marshmallow root is excellent in herbal oil. So it's just knowing the biochemistry of these plants and questioning like, okay, will these substances extract these chemicals well? And you'll be surprised about some of the things you discover. So the thing I learned about these vinegar tinctures was I was like, gosh, there's not a lot of things I can give this person if they can only have vinegars, but actually there's quite a few. Glycerin is another solvent used to extract tinctures with. A lot of children's formulas in the stores are glycerites. So a lot of herbal shops or natural pharmacies or in food co-ops or food stores, the natural sections, herbal sections of the store, when they have children's recipes or children's formulas, they tend to be glycerites. Glycerites are generally slowly simmered over time using a crock pot method. Um, I personally don't really like to make glycerites. However, glycerin's an excellent solvent at extracting tannins. So that action or the action that happens with tannin is astringency. So being able to dry wet, moist conditions or a condition where the tissues have become flaccid or loose or moist, a little bit loose and I'm trying to give you a better picture. I'm getting the right word. If you have a sponge and it's really, really dry and you can't get water won't really come into it, that's not the case. But if there's water just seeping out of that sponge and you can't get water to stop seeping out of that sponge, that's a good situation for astringency. To experience astringency, take a lemon, suck on it, get that puckering taste in your mouth or that dryness in your mouth, or when you've steeped tea too long and you feel that dryness in your mouth. That's astringency because the tannins in the plants are closing up the gaps and helping to remove the secretions, remove the moisture. Okay. So imagine in other scenarios where you might need that action to be more prevalent or more strategic, bleeding, to stop diarrhea or something that's a little bit more intense, right? So there are a spectrum and every herb within an action fits on it, right? And so you will use the herb that's most appropriate for the case you're presented. Um, and again, specificity. So you'll know that, okay, lemon's astringent. Okay, we just talked about diarrhea. Gosh, can I use lemons for diarrhea? Not really. Lemons are not as astringent as necessary for that case, but blackberry root is. So knowing that spectrum of action from, again, knowing the plants individually will help you determine what is best. If you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get this. This is way too much information. Go back to training 2 yesterday because I explained exactly how I consolidate all this information and integrate it effectively through routines because it is a lot of knowledge. It's taken a long time for me to compound all of this. And I don't have notes in front of me today. I just know this, but I have to practice it or else I won't remember it either. And so those are your tinctures. Tinctures, when you shop for a tincture, you definitely want to look for, sorry, I got my face in the camera. I really like Herb Farm and I like Mountain Rose herbs for tinctures if I buy them. You want to have a clear name of the company. You want to have a clear date as to when it was made. You want to have the Latin names, the proper scientific names. So this says it had black haw and it says Viburnum prunifolium, okay, next to it in Latin italics. So if you see products that don't have scientific names of plants, I don't recommend buying them because they're not specific. So we even talk about specificity in how we buy our products. Look for products that have proper packaging and non-tampered, not it's all closed and sealed correctly. I'm going to use this bottle within a certain amount of time, but if you're storing tinctures, I recommend having caps instead of droppers because the droppers tend to corrode over time. If they're properly capped in larger storage bottles, your alcohol tinctures can last indefinitely. We have found tinctures that were over 100 years old and tested them and they were still as viable as the day they were made. So alcohol is a preparation for a longevity. And that's why it's such a resourceful way to make herbal medicine too, because you can use less herbs to make a large amount, and this can really go a long way. You can make mixes into your finished bottles, or you can just have your single herbs and then compound as you need to, or blend as you need to, right? It's up to you. But other things you want to look for on the bottle, again, just what kinds of things it said it was made with, like the solvent, proper labeling, and proper instructions. So that's kind of, I told you I wanted to get a little bit into herbal products you buy. Um, cool. Oils and salves, right? Maybe for some topicals. So, making your own herbal oils is great for skincare. It's great for having, first aid solutions. And liniments are really interesting. It's where you like spray an herbal compound onto your skin before you apply a balm. So it helps to bring circulation to the area. A couple classic recipes: Colossus liniment, Queen Hungary's water, some old school stuff. But you still occasionally can find the word liniment or, yeah, liniment on a bottle. Cracker Barrel sometimes will have them in their little sections. Um, some very popular topical herbs include arnica, like Arnica montana, for swelling or first aid problems. And also calendula, again, is a good player, comfrey. And again, you get to know these plants because you might not necessarily take those herbs internally, but you can use them topically. So you get to know the differentiations as you go deeper in your work. The two big factors for making herbal medicine like a pro is specificity, getting to know the plants on an individual basis, and two, blending. Learning great blending skills will take you forever. So, learning a good system for blending and sticking with it. Don't just give up on it. Practice it a few times until it gets into a rhythm into your life. And then you'll be making the best teas, tinctures, balms, vinegars, and foods forever. There are other ones, herbal capsules, but that's just, basic. You're drying the herbs and powdering them and filling up your capsules, your capsule machine. Electuaries or using the herbal powders to like roll into honey. It's a great way for kids to take herbs, but also to have like good handy little quick snacks. And a good way to use the variety of herbs. I would recommend powdering the herbs as you go rather than keeping a bunch of powders on hand. Again, because the longer and more exposed they are to air, they lose their longevity. So I usually keep the herbs intact until I'm ready to use a mortar and pestle or another way or a coffee blender to grind that up. Because let's be honest, we need less to do, more time to enjoy the herbs. If y'all have any questions, please share them in the chat. But that's what I have to talk about today. And tomorrow we are going to be live again at 2:00. I know we're going to be talking about like herbal opportunities this week as well. I'm going to look at my phone and make sure I know the schedule for tomorrow. Please reach out to me by DM if you want that Herbalism 101 sheet with like those tea preparations kind of explained out in writing. Or I can just write about them if you want on the Substack. And yeah, Everyday Herbalism Fast Track is open for enrollment. It's $20 a month for our founding members launch. And our goal is to get to our amount of members that we're looking for in this tier. And then we'll be changing the price for that. So now is a great time to get in on that level. It's wonderful for folks who really know that they need accountability and support as they make their decisions and go along the holistic path. And need a little bit of help with implementation and support to, yeah, just keep going and stay motivated. So tomorrow we'll be talking about how to have all the herbs and resources that you will need for your holistic lifestyle and how to do this affordably and sustainably. So I kind of got into a lot of that already, but I'll break it down a little bit more tomorrow. And then the final day is really good opportunities for people wanting to make some money helping others with herbalism. So some things that maybe are a little less known that have been helpful to me in my career. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Let me know if you need anything else. And until next time, get outside, enjoy the sun, and drink some tea. Take care. Bye.